For staying with us. We appreciate it. It is the moment. It is time for arguably Kenya's longest serving political prisoner, Koigi Wamwere. There he is in the VIP room, making his way to the studio. And I echo the words of Still Betty the One. That's what you call yourself. Still Betty the One, with a photo of yourself and Koigi. You say, a rare moment with the man himself. Yani, I can't wait for this part of the interview. JKL Live. This was in 2015, November, Kenya's longest serving political prisoner. Here he is. Mheshimiwa, how long has it been?
Well, many years.
Very many. How you doing? Good to see you.
Not bad.
Karibu sana.
Surviving.
Karibu sana. Karibu.
And trying to survive.
Welcome.
And you lost me.
I lost you, and you became busy, and but I found you again.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Absolutely.
Karibu
Anyway,
sana.
asante.
Welcome.
Nashukuru.
And thank you for staying on. I know we took a little late now, but
well, you had an important person, Vivian, Chief Inspector.
Chief Inspector.
Yeah.
Incredible, huh?
Yes.
Amazing story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been any other way.
Absolutely.
Speaking of time for her.
Yes. Speaking of amazing stories, I have to ask you this because this is the day of the Requiem service for Kenneth Stanley Jindo Matiba.
Yes, Jeff.
Your thoughts about it, because you are arguably Kenya's longest serving political prisoner, arguably,
yes,
if not the longest.
Yes,
Matiba,
there were others ahead of me.
There were others.
Like Ochengo Neko, Makan Singh. I think they stayed, but during the colonial days.
Yes.
Mine, after independence, I think, is the longest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your thoughts about
Matiba?
Mr. Matiba, yes.
Obviously, he is a great hero. And let me qualify, not of Muranga or of the Kikuyu community, but the Kenyan nation. He is a man who metamorphosed from a fairly, very pro-establishment politician, but who ended up becoming the detainee who would pay the highest price for our second liberation. So I have a lot of respect for him. When I think of him, I think of sacrifice, I think of patriotism, I think of courage. I think of somebody who, had we more, say 10 other persons like him, that we would be probably further than where we are as a nation.
Was it unfair? Look, people are coming out now eulogizing him. Some of them even weeping crocodile tears. Is that expected, or is that hypocritical of us as Kenyans?
I think it's very hypocritical, but expected, because during the burial of Winnie Mandela, we had a similar spectacle. You remember Marema?
Yes.
Saying, Mama, those who called you criminals.
They are here.
They are here. They are shouting, they are crying more loudly than we are. They are even in the funeral arrangement committee. They have possessions there, and you didn't tell us how to deal with them.
Yes.
So we have our own similar people. A dictatorship creates, actually distorts the human nature, and it makes people who are generally good bad.
Yeah.
Not because they want to be bad, but because they want to survive. And remember, this was happening during the time of the one-party dictatorship.
Right.
When, most unfortunately, the president was more or less like God. And nobody wanted to cross him. And you knew, there are many things that were being asked to support, which you could not stop. So there are many people who said, rather than get into trouble, I better go along. And it's only the most courageous, and sometimes I wonder whether it is human courage or it's something more to do with fate picking its own, fighters for certain battles, that some of us choose to go the way of, succumbing, and they say what they are expected to say. But it is the one thing that disturbs me is that while people do that because the conditions are as bad as they can be, and they are not seeing any hope in the future. When that era is over and we have our freedom back, people now should be able to own up to what they did.
Yeah.
And they don't have to behave as if they must be there for them to be human. In fact, the persons like those we saw in the list that was read out in the church are persons who should be quite capable of saying, yes, during the time when Ken Matiba was arrested and detained, we, few days later in Parliament, we said things that we should never have said.
Yeah.
We apologize now. And I think that people should apologize for what they said, and people who are at the top of things, the presidents, must also be able to apologize for things they did because they thought that only such a things could be done, yet now they know better.
Yeah, there was actually a bit of a dilemma moment today. Joe Kibe.
Yes.
Literally saying,
yes,
former
I saw
President
him.
Mike, you saw that, right?
Yes, and read out the list.
Correct.
And obviously it is embarrassing, but it's embarrassing because they have not accepted it. They should be able to say why they did it. If they say that they were overcome by fear, you remember Peter and Jesus before the third crow,
yes.
You will have betrayed me. It is actually the same thing, that we don't have the courage. People don't share, they do not have the same courage all the time. And owning up is really, I don't think that it is shame. Actually, I think it would make them greater people. Just being able to say, yes, we know we did this. And yet we know it was dishonorable.
Yeah.
Now that we can say things differently, we apologize to the people whom we betrayed.
Yeah.
We wish we had not done it. I got myself caught in a similar situation, although I was actually almost doing the suicide of doing something that really was going to cost me very dearly. When we were passing in the section 2A, the amount of fear that was there was incredible. I have never seen members of parliament as cowed as they were that day. Parliament was like a graveyard. Everybody was so sad. And yet we knew that there was nothing we could do about it unless we were willing to go home. And we had been told some days earlier, those who will dare go against this move, your names, because we suspect you, your names are already down. And no, actually it was the other way around, that the detention forms are already signed. We are just waiting to fill in the names.
Wow.
That made everybody toe the line. But as I was saying, even then, I was almost being suicidal. I stood twice, wanting to say, no, what we are doing is not right. And Speaker Marty looked at me, and each time he saw me, he looked the other way. And then I would try to get another chance and get up. He would look away again. And by that time, I knew that my goose was already cooked because I had already been seen.
Yeah.
People like Jonjo had already seen me standing up, trying to say, they knew I was going to oppose. So later I asked the speaker, when we were having a drink, I asked him, Mr. Speaker, why did you deny me a chance to say what I really thought needed to be said? He said, some people are like butterflies. They are like moths. They like throwing themselves into the fire. One death today was enough. I asked him, what death? He said, the death of democracy.
Wow.
That was enough for today.
That's heavy. That's heavy.
Absolutely.
One more thing before we switch gears about Matiba. Do you think his name will forever be embedded in this nation's history? You think we'll remember him 50, 100 years from now?
Yes, if we care for freedom, if we care for democracy, if we care for the price that some people have paid for it, not just Matiba. Remember the struggle started long with the Mau Mau. We still remember Kenneth Matiba, although we have a tendency of forgetting. You remember we had to be reminded by Mandela when he came and said that he wanted to see Kimathi's family. Yeah. We should not be like that. And I think that like other nations, I think we are capable of learning how to do the right thing. And one of the right things that we must learn how to do is really to remember those of us who have made their contribution to the preservation of the nation, to the, to democracy. Because if we do not remember these people, when there will be a need for similar people, we will not get them. It is because we respect. And I think we must start learning to do what, you have been to the US. Yeah. If you are going to their university and you want to take a course there, the first course they offer you is the one about their history.
That's right.
When you go to a place like Norway or in the UK, you also have to learn to take a course in their history. That's what we need to start to do. And these courses should not be offered for the marks that people will get, but they should be offered with an attempt, a clear attempt to motivate patriotism in us,
but let's face
to
it,
make us patriotic.
Let's face it, we don't recognize our heroes. Whether it's Chief Inspector Vivian Cheruiyot, who was here a few moments ago, she could probably walk down the streets of Nairobi, no one would recognize her. No one would recognize her.
Somebody told me that Ngugi wa Thiong'o, when he is in South Africa, he can hardly walk because people stop him and they want him to autograph things for them. But then he told me that I've observed when Ngugi is in Nairobi, he can almost pass a street as if he is a nobody. Yeah. It's like people don't recognize him, but they recognize, but I think we are too selfish. Yeah. We are too individualistic, self-centered. And we really fail to understand that it is only by working with others that we can make ourselves anybody. This idea that you can be on your own and survive is a fallacy. Yeah. It's a complete fallacy. It's just like we don't think that our existence has anything to do with the existence of trees. So we cut them. But the moment you educate someone that for you to survive, to remain alive, you need what is breathed out by the tree. Yeah. And the tree also needs what you breathe out for it to survive. So it's a question of interdependence. So I think that we have to take things very differently. We must be embarrassed by things when we do them wrong, especially, and stop this idea of forgetting. For instance, let me say, Jeff, that I have been a bit surprised that as we have been celebrating and mourning Matiba, we have been telling his story only mostly insofar as achievements are concerned, that he did well here, he did well there, he did well there, which is all right, it should be told. But we are failing to say, what is it that killed Matiba? Was his death a natural death? Did he die in a road accident? If he died for something else, if he was killed, who killed him? Why are we stopping just short of that? We are afraid to condemn the things that killed Matiba, as if we wouldn't mind if another Matiba were to be killed tomorrow. Because that's really what we are saying we are prepared for. Otherwise, we should be able to say Matiba died in the hands of the government that was in power then. Matiba was killed by an institution called dictatorship. which we still have in our books, in our law books. Matiba died because we had a dictatorship, a one-party dictatorship. Could our multi-party democracy transform into a dictatorship like the one that killed Matiba? Because if we have another one-party dictatorship, or we have detention in our laws, then we should expect that there will be other Matibas dying tomorrow and the day after. And remember, Jeff, this thing did not start yesterday. It started with Pio Gamapinto in 1965 when he was assassinated. And we really didn't say much about him. We said he was a Muhindi. And then there was 1969, the assassination of Tom Mboya. And what did we say? He's a Mjaluo. And then there was the assassination of J.M. Kariuki. We said this is a Kikuyu rebel. And subsequently, more and more people have been, going through their assassinations. Even Matiba's was another very long assassination, although it took 27 years to really come to a completion.
Absolutely. Look, it's funny you say it, because you've written extensively about that, the dictatorship that you fear,
yes,
that we're heading into. You've written extensively in your weekend column. But let me take you back a little bit and ask you about the handshake. Your thoughts about the handshake.
To be honest, Jeff, I was pleasantly surprised because I had been calling for a dialogue. And I don't believe that a country should be built on a foundation of monolithic thoughts. I think that people develop most and they gather most knowledge when they are in a struggle of opposites. It's like Mao Zedong said, let 1,000 thoughts, compete, and let 1,000 flowers blossom. Let people compete. Nobody should be criminalized for holding an opinion that is contrary. Otherwise, we should actually be happy because, no one person can possibly have all the thoughts that are necessary for the development of a country. You make your contribution, I make my contribution, somebody else makes their contribution, and together we bring these thoughts to a bank and we withdraw as we need them. That's my way of, that's the kind of president I would like to see. Somebody who is not even afraid of welcoming people who are clearly known to be critical. Call them for a cup of tea. Ask them, what is it that you don't like?
Yeah.
What is it that you think we are doing right? Because people just don't do things that are wrong. So the handshake, I had been saying, therefore, let us stop criminalizing Raila Odinga. Let us not call him a criminal. Let us not call him a terrorist or whatever. All these words. And people thought, oh yes, Koigi is saying this because he really, there is a Kikuyu proverb that talks about the goat that makes, that cries out will cry to its death. It never stops crying. But so it is like I couldn't do anything else other than protect my fellow rebel. So to be quite honest, when they came together, I was very happy. And I said, I hope that the dialogue that will follow, because the handshake could only make sense if it was going to come with a dialogue. Without the dialogue, then we had nothing to do with it. Probably it could have been just about the tea they took before they came to the front of the building for the handshake. But that they did it, I said to myself, let's hope that this will be the beginning of a dialogue, not just about changing the constitution to accommodate some persons into the system, into the government, but a dialogue that will allow this nation to have a national convention where we can discuss not just the change of the constitution, but all the other problems that we have ailing us. How do we deal with them? From those of Wanjiku to those of the president. That is what I said to myself.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm happy about the fact that the president is coming forward with his 4 pillars of manufacturing, which is job creation, housing, food and health. But I say to myself, I hope now with this handshake, we'll actually take a step further and look at the obstacles which this country needs for these goals of the president to be able to get fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I was then thinking about bad leadership from top to bottom, bad system, a system that really has been very good at creating poverty for us since independence, corruption, and a negative ethnicity, which we have always said that this a monster that will kill us.
Absolutely.
You know?
You mentioned changing the constitution a moment ago, and that's where the conversation seems to be going. Changing the constitution, like you said, to accommodate a prime minister position and other positions. Is that where we're heading now? Is that where we're heading?
I hope not. I have no problem us discussing thoroughly as a nation what we need between the parliamentary system and the presidential system. I have no quarrel. I don't think that the constitution as we have it has served us as smoothly in all areas as one would have desired. We have bumpy places. Remember, the American Constitution was changed soon after it had been enacted. Yeah. So there is absolutely nothing wrong in trying to change a constitution. But I think it would be selfish for leaders to just think about changes that will earn them positions in the government or wherever, or something that is being done for purposes of establishing family dynasties. It worried me a little bit what I've been seeing, because after the handshake, I've been seeing these visits of Raila to various leaders. And of course, you remember when he went to the Harambee House, he went accompanied by his daughter. But subsequently, he has been to see Kibaki, and Kibaki was with his son. And then he also had been to see, who else? Moi, and Moi was there with his son. So I've been asking myself, is there something cooking? Is there somebody trying to establish some family dynasties or a government of family dynasties? Would that be thinking too much? Probably not, after all. Maybe why? It's not an accident that the most prominent politicians today are the sons of our most senior leaders at the time of independence and shortly thereafter. So I'm saying, let's keep away from that path. If anybody is thinking along those lines, let us just think about what our people need, because our people have many problems. We must accept that. Yeah. And that cannot be gotten rid of by the comforts and the wealth and the progress of just the leaders themselves. Yeah. So if we fail to look at these other problems during this debate, we shall have failed very badly. Absolutely. In my view. But I think that it is quite right that we are able to. Personally, I think time is ripe. Let us not pretend that things have been all that smooth. It's God who has even saved us. Yeah. Remember, we are still talking about a whole region that didn't vote. That's right. We got to bring these people on board. How do we do it? And there are many other people on the ground, people in the slums, people in the villages. These people cannot say that they are in Canaan yet, even if it is not Raila's Canaan. But there is a Canaan that people need to go to. Yes. Right? All of us.
Which we want to talk about that after the break. You know, look, this handshake on this new bromance is causing jitters right inside Jubilee. Let's not kid ourselves. It's causing jitters right at the doorstep of Deputy President William Ruto himself. Let's not kid ourselves. Number two, where's the opposition now? Is there an opposition? Are we coming back to that dictatorship, that one-party state you talk about in your weekend articles? Think about that.
Yeah.
Koigi Wamwere, no doubt, arguably one of the longest serving political prisoners. And yes, he's still talking. He's still fighting for the common man. It's great to hear a voice like this at a time like this. Keep listening and keep tweeting at Kwamwere, at Koinanga Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JK Live. And JK Live takes a break. We'll be back. Plenty more ahead. Back in a moment.